Hello and welcome to our ranking of all the Marvel Cinematic films. That is 34 films in total.
It's just
Here's a big monster.
A big monster, that's right, yeah.
And that is including Deadpool and Wolverine.
Big monster.
Including Deadpool and Wolverine. So we've got the whole list from Iron Man to Deadpool and Wolverine. So, without further ado, let's just jump straight into it because otherwise this video is going to be 8 years long.
Yeah.
Cool. So, do you want to kick us off with 34, sir?
34 is the big stinkums. It is the Eternals.
Yeah.
This film stinks.
Yeah, I haven't even finished it. Like...
Yeah, it got halfway through to new. Yeah, it's atrocious. I hate this film.
Yeah.
And we're very as we find though. I think we're very easily pleased in general.
Yeah, we're not Marvel haters. Films. So
no, not at all. But this film is atrocious.
Yeah, it's just boring.
34. Yeah,
super lifeless, super boring. Yeah, rubbish.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move straight past that. Number 33, I think, is most people's bottom. I think these are probably the most generic two bottom films you can get.
Yeah.
Thor: The Dark World. So Thor 2 stinks, rubbish.
Yeah, no, it's not great, is it?
Do you remember anything from it?
There's a big thing.
Yeah, and I remember, is this the one
through.
where Loki turns into Captain America for a quick joke? That's quite funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, other than that's rubbish.
And it's his sister, isn't it?
No, that's Ragnarok. Yep, told you, this stinks.
Yeah. Okay, Thor 2, Dark World.
Garbage.
Poopy world. 32 is a more recent one. It is Ant-Man Quantumania.
It is Ant-Man Quantumania. This thing, it's not the worst film I've ever seen in my life, but it's it's unfortunate looking back now because Mr. Kang is no more, essentially.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those where like I didn't mind this film. It's not something that I went away being like, oh my god, that was horrific. I know generally people kind of hate this film, but I think it's just more a case of now looking back, it's a really pointless film, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially the fact we've moved on from Kang and stuff now. It's like awkward.
Yeah, it is pretty awkward to be fair. Yeah, it's just I think it tries too hard to be funny, and it's alright. It's alright.
Yeah.
And MODOK is really scary, so we'll move on.
Yeah, there's a little bum like.
Yeah, very, very weird. Anyway, number 31, Black Widow. I don't think it's a really bad film. It just feels so late, too little, too late. Let's be honest.
Too late, and it's pretty pointless, isn't it? As I said, it's a decent film. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen in the world. It's just a bit like it's there. I know they're kind of doing more with the Thunderbolts, where they're bringing in a few characters from there. No. They don't, unfortunately. But I love Yelena. I do.
Me too.
I think she's great. But yeah, it's just another one that's there. I think with a lot of these, they're just there. They're just films. They're within the Marvel universe, but they're just there. They don't really do a lot, do they?
No, it kind of doesn't even feel connected, really, does it? Because like obviously we'd already had the arc of her dying, and then all of a sudden we get Black Widow.
No, she's dead, and then like here's a film. It's like okay,
really, really silly. So that's number 31. What is number 30?
Number 30 is Thor 4: Love and Thunder.
It's kind of sad that two of his films are in the bottom of the list.
I know his films are a real mixed bag, aren't they? In general, Thor films. Yeah, this was it's just not his film, though, is it?
No.
This is about her,
Valkyrie.
and again, it's a bit like, why?
Yeah.
Why are we doing this? This was another one that felt way too late. They're bringing Natalie Portman back now after she hadn't been there since Thor 1, I think, and then they brought her back here, and again, like
she's in Thor 2 as well.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
Oh, fair. Well, there we are then. Yeah, I just remember Thor 2 then. But yes, I mean, she definitely came back for the money.
Oh yeah.
And everyone was kind of aware of it, and they gave her a bit of a sad story to be like, oh look, it's sad that she's going, but no one really gave a shit.
Yeah.
But Christian Bale, great.
Christian Bale is really good, and there's some fun action scenes here. Like there's some fun to be had, but again, they tried way too hard to be funny, and when you're trying that hard to be funny, it's rarely ever funny, and it's just
especially when it's around the sensitive subject as well.
Yeah, it just kind of came across as a little bit awkward. So yeah, number 30, Thor: Love and Thunder. 29 is Ant-Man and the Wasp. Do you remember anything about this film?
The Wasp?
There's a fun
No,
action scene through the like kitchen where they throw like knives in it. That's pretty funny. And then
Yeah.
you get the fun little Hot Wheels bit where they kind of turn the Hot Wheels into cars. That's funny. But again, these films try too hard to be funny, and it just doesn't. It's not funny.
It is a tricky one with Ant-Man though, isn't it? Like it's really difficult for him to do a film because he's an ant, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like, and like how do you? Obviously, it's similar to Quantumania. Like it's like how do you do it, because it's like within a world. They basically had to make it within like atoms sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because he's just literally an ant.
Small boy.
You've got to have like you know, as you said, it's nice they have different things. Where as far as like toys and stuff they bring in when they have in like the small battles, like that's really cool. But yeah, Ant-Man.
Yeah, there's some charm to be had, but other than that, nah, it's not great. So
I still love Ant-Man.
Yeah. So what's number 28?
28 is Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Another tricky one.
Yeah, I just kind of don't care. Again, I'm not a fan of the scrolls like at all. So this doesn't really do much for me at all. She's all right. You know what I mean? There's some fun action scenes, but
yeah, it's another tricky one though, isn't it? Similar to why with Ant-Man where he's an ant, like she's just ridiculously overpowered, so it's really difficult to do anything where it's like there's a genuine threat to her.
And unfortunately, she's just really boring.
She is, yeah. She's not. It's not the most entertaining films. It's a nice little origin thing, and it's nice they kind of, what is it? This 70s, 80s. When was this one?
80s, I think, isn't it?
80s. So yeah, I think they've got like this nice like aesthetic.
Yeah.
To it.
Yeah.
But again, yeah, it's just another film.
Yeah,
that's there.
It's fine. 27. I'm
26.
Huh? Oh, sorry. I'm a little bit defender of this one. The Incredible Hulk. Yeah, I think it's all right.
Yeah, no, it is all right. It's a weird one, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like this is like the real black sheep of this entire list, really.
Well, I mean, it wasn't really included until they went. Actually, it's included.
Yeah. It's kind of like a bit up in the air as to whether it's a legitimate like part of the Marvel film. It is. They've sort of claimed that it is, but it's not really, is it? Like as far as like the films are concerned, it doesn't really connect to anything. I think they've just kind of gone, oh yeah, I think it's like a little bit right at the end. They're like, it kind of is part of it, but it's not really. But no, it's pretty solid. I mean, and this is the only Hulk film we have.
Yeah,
so which is a real shame.
Some great action scenes. Although Tim Roth is only in it to be Abomination at the end, he's fun, and I like the action scenes they have.
He is great,
and there's some fun to be had. So not a terrible.
And hopefully we get a bit more of him going forward.
Yes. Oh yeah. God. Yeah. Of course. But yeah, I think from here on the films get marginally better from what we've already spoken about. So what is number 26?
26 is she's coming back. It's the Marvels.
Everyone's worst film ever because it's female.
Yeah. No, I know. This was fun.
Yeah, we enjoyed this.
We enjoyed it. We did enjoy it. Like it's not something that it doesn't have a massive impact on the Marvel series as a whole.
And it kind of doesn't have a third act. It just kind of finishes.
Yeah, there is that. But it's really great. I think to be fair, it's Miss Marvel, isn't it? For both of us, it's Miss Marvel is the reason that this film is so enjoyable.
Yep.
Her interactions, just to see her, she's like a fan. Like to see her like fangirling over Captain Marvel is quite nice. It's quite refreshing. It almost makes it feel like an actual world.
Yeah.
You know, where like, you know, rather than just being like I'm super, you're super, we're superheroes. It's a bit like, you know, she's seen Captain Marvel do all these crazy things, and yeah, she's a bit gassed to see them all.
Yeah.
But good interactions, good fight scenes.
It's just a harmless film. That's literally it. Like, it's not the best film ever, obviously, but it's not even close to the worst. I think it's just kind of fun. It's fine. You know, it's an absolutely fine film. So,
and a good singing planet that you love so much.
That was so weird. But anyway, number 25. So we're in the top 25. So Iron Man 2. It's a very divisive one. I don't hate it up until the ending, where I hate the ending. Like, I think it's really stupid. But the rest of the film, I really fucking love Whiplash. Mickey Rourke's Whiplash is like the funniest thing ever. And I love Justin Hammer is a lot of fun. Sam Rockwell's Justin Hammer is a lot of fun too. There's some funny humor in here, but it's just kind of, it's kind of lifeless compared to the first one. Unfortunately, I think that's the biggest issue.
It's sort of there, isn't it? Like, I think this is the first sequel we have in Marvel, and I think like this is still when they're kind of trying to perfect everything. This is still them sort of like tampering with things and seeing what works and what doesn't. I think obviously as we get later on, they sort of like nailed the sequels and the third films and stuff now, whereas this was like the original sequel, it's the original threequel, I think. So yeah, there's great ideas, but just another film that you're just kind of like, okay, cool. Another Iron Man film, cool. Like, cool to see Iron Man again, but yeah, a bit like the worst of the three.
Yeah, and we do get the intro to Black Widow here, which is fun. I always forget this is where she started, which is always fun.
Oh God, yes, I know it is.
This is it. But course, other than that, just kind of bog standard, really. It's fine. Yeah. Next.
Number 24. I feel slightly harsh on this one, I'll be honest with you, but when you look up the list, it's kind of fair. But it's Wakanda Forever.
Yeah, it's just, again, it's a weird one, because when I watched it, I really enjoyed it. I didn't like some of the little side stories, the whole Ironheart thing. Get that out of here. Don't care. She looked like a Power Ranger.
Wrong place, didn't it?
Yeah.
Wrong place.
I really love the villain, though. The villain is so sick. Namor, he's class. And I kind of love what they did with him and his whole world. But unfortunately, this was always going to feel a bit lifeless because we lost the main star, which is obviously very sad. They couldn't do anything about that. Completely out of control. But unfortunately, what's her name? No, I can't remember her name. She never quite reaches that level where you're like, oh my god, yes, this is it. And I don't know, it just feels a bit lifeless, unfortunately, due to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was always the plan. No, I think she was always going to take up the mantle. But yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful send off. It is,
and I think this film didn't the Marvel logo have? That was stunning. Yeah. Stunning.
It's kind of this is like a film that is basically a send off for Chadwick Boseman, isn't it? This is what this film is made for, and it is a beautiful send off for him. But again, it's just one of those films where it's outside of that. It's almost in its own bubble, isn't it? Yeah. This film felt like it's part of the universe to a degree, but it did just feel like it was kind of made just as like a love letter to him rather than it being a part of it. So I feel a little harsh on it, but when you see what's coming up, it's sort of like
and maybe on a rewatch it's better, but I saw it once, I was quite emotional over it, I'll be honest. It was quite sad. And then other than that, I just don't have a really need to watch it again unless I rewatch these from the beginning. So number 23 is what I consider to be a really good film until the back end, where it just falls upon itself. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Yeah,
I think it opens so well. It does such a good job for so long, and then it just falls upon itself in the third act, and it never picks back up.
He's not a great villain, is he?
No, and I mean the visuals at the end are horrendous, like real bad. No, so it just takes me right out of it, and unfortunately, it never picks it back up. It's just not great.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't end well, unfortunately. I mean, the Guardians overall is a really solid.
This is our intro to Mantis. Am I correct?
Yes,
which is a great character.
Yes, this is where we introduce. So there's great ideas, and there's always Guardians are always fun films. Like it's not one of those films you go, oh my god, this is rubbish. Like these films from here forward are not bad films. No. But yeah, it's like the one of the series, isn't there? You kind of go, oh yeah, Guardians 2. I kind of forgot that happened almost. Which is a bit of a shame, but it's another film that's there.
And I think once you kind of compare it to 1 and 3, it really does show itself. Okay, so number 22, what have we got?
22 is Ant-Man, number 1. Now, this is solid.
I like this film.
No, this is a solid film. It's a really good introduction to Ant-Man. It's solid. I think that's the best way to describe it.
It also works as a fun heist film, which is good.
No, it really does. I think it's never. I think with the other two sort of films, you feel a bit like, I think because they did so much with this film, like you felt like it had nowhere to go from here.
Yeah.
You have this sort of like, again with the toy scenes where they're battling amongst the toys and stuff, and that's great scenes there. But outside of that, then it's a bit like. I think in 2 and 3 they should have gone with big rather than small. Because they kind of do small so well in this film, and then 2 it's like we're small again, and 3 it's like we're small again. You get a bit like, okay, right, we're just getting smaller and smaller. I think if they lent into the bigness a bit more and kind of did him fighting against a giant or some sort, I think that would have been really cool to see. But yeah, I think this is the best Ant-Man.
It is the best one, and I really love Yellow Jacket, the villain. I think there was a lot of potential.
Yellow Jacket is great. Yeah.
I don't like where they go with him, but I like what they did in this film specifically. And he's kind of menacing towards the end. Like when he takes the kid and that, it's kind of creepy.
Yeah,
it's good.
No, it's great. And I mean, obviously, Paul Rudd as Ant-Man is fantastic. He is fantastic.
Yeah, so good.
He is fantastic as Ant-Man. His films are just a bit lackluster.
Yeah, I think Ant-Man's really good. Number 21. I am not the biggest lover of this film, but I still think it's still solid. Spider-Man: Homecoming. It just it's an odd one. I think Tom Holland's trilogy is very up and down anyway. I think it's a very strange trilogy. But this film, I think
it gets better though.
It does get better. I think the Spider-Man aspects are really good, and he's clearly a very good Peter Parker. It's everything else I don't really care about, because this is essentially Iron Man 4 with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest issue.
No, I can agree with that. I think it is tricky but then it is also one of the best relationships in Marvel is Iron Man and Spider-Man.
Yes.
So it's like the start of that, which you kind of it kind of becomes one of those things there where you can't have one without the other, especially going forward. Like you kind of Spider-Man and Iron Man end up just together. Like he is that father sort of role for him. It's a nice introduction. It's nice to see a different villain with a Vulture.
Oh yeah,
which is nice because I think we don't really, I think this is the first time we've seen Vulture. I believe.
Yes, this was.
Or was he in one of the Amazing Spider-Mans?
No, because this is again. Sorry, different actor. No, not at all. No.
No. Okay, yeah. So this is the first introduction to Vulture. It's a cool way to start. Like I think it's a nice introduction. But yeah, nothing groundbreaking. Just a nice little. Well, it's not really an introduction to Spider-Man. A nice first film for Spider-Man.
Yeah, and I think Michael Keaton's class as Vulture. I think he's really good.
Oh, he is great.
But yeah, it's just kind of it's fine. It's good. It was one of those.
No, it is.
What is number 20?
Number 20.
So we're in the top 20. We've reached top 20. So this is from here. I think these are very good films, but they kind of You'll see where we go. Yeah, you'll see.
Yeah. Okay. So top 20. So number 20 is Thor.
OG Thor.
Number 1, which I think. It's good.
It's mad because you've got the intro to Thor here, you've got the intro to Jane, you've got the intro to all the family of Jane as well, you've got the intro to Hawkeye, you've got mad intros here, Loki. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. I think this is an important film.
Yes, yeah.
I think it's good. It's not like I think there's probably arguably better films below it as a film. Yeah. But I think this is a very important film. Like this is, I mean, it's Thor. It's one of the OGs, isn't it? It's one of the sort of the mainstays of Marvel, and it's solid. I mean, we do have this is the blonde eyebrows, the infamous blonde eyebrows, which is questionable, and it's quite an interesting take, isn't it? It's interesting for him to come down and sort of be like that. Everyone sees him like he almost has like a villain start, which is kind of interesting. Yeah. Like he's very much seen as like a bad guy until everyone realised, oh no, he's just a bit of a lovable idiot. And
I think I love the first act of this film. I think the first act of this film is awesome. I think it's so good up until we get the actual superhero stuff at the end, which I think is not great because no one cares about Thor's team of random superheroes. No one cares about them.
No, they don't.
The bit you care about is the fact that Thor has come down and he's like a stupid idiot essentially because he's like a fish out of water, which is a really fun aspect. And then you kind of get the generic superhero stuff, which is just
and it's great to see like Norse mythology involved in general, like stuff it's not just superhero stuff, it's actual like gods, it's mythology, isn't it? But gods and stuff. So it's a nice start for Thor. I mean, it's the second best than Thor's. He started alright and it kind of went downhill and then they kind of brought it back. But this is kind of where we noticed the inconsistency in a Thor film. So number 20 is Thor. So
number 19 is Iron Man 3, which I think is a controversial opinion because I know a lot of people don't like this one. But I've never really understood that. I get it, it's not as good as the first one, obviously, and it's better than the second one. But I don't know why people hated it. Like it always baffled me. I thought this was a really exciting. I understand the twist is kind of stupid. Like I get that. The whole Trevor Mandarin thing, it's kind of dumb. But the film as a whole, it's got some really solid action. The last act, I think, is so much fun with the suits and stuff.
With all of them, it's incredible.
I love Iron Man 3, so
Yeah, same. No, I completely agree. Like, and I think this is the first time where you start to see the sort of nicer side, I guess, to Tony Stark, is where you start to see the more like human
The
side, the
human
more
side, yeah.
Yeah. I think this is the way he first, because I mean he literally just destroys everything, doesn't he? He just
Yeah.
destroys everything he's built. So up to this point, he's been building this almost like Iron Man army.
It's kind of mad to think that back here we thought this was the end of Iron Man. Like, it's so funny to look back. But at the time I was terrified. I was like, oh my god, no more Iron Man.
Yeah, and I mean, and I think, unfortunately, I think this probably the reason probably gets shit on a lot as well is the fact that this was almost like 1, 2, and 3, like straight away.
Yeah.
We didn't really have much in between. It was pretty much. I think 3. I'm not sure if it was after the Avenger or before the Avenger, but it wasn't a great. So I think it was 1, 2, and then Avengers. Then it was straight after, I think.
Yeah, it was around there because it was around Ultron time as well, wasn't it? So they were kind of all close together.
So I think whereas everyone else has had like one film, I think, but Iron Man 3 to everyone else is one. So I think it was a lot of there was a lot of characters introduced and stuff, and I think people were a bit sort of like, oh, another Iron Man. But then obviously this is it. So then we're like going forward. Then I think like people start to love him more then because he when he turns up, it's like a big deal. But yeah, I think unfair criticism for Iron Man.
Yeah, I think there's some solid action scenes. I think it's just a fun film. I think it's good. So what have we got at 18?
18 is Spider-Man 2 Far From Home.
Far From Home. That's it.
Far From Home. With Mysterio.
Yeah, this is a strange one because again, people hate this film, and I don't really get that either. I think this is a really fun film. Jake Gyllenhaal crushes it as Magneto. I think he's so good. He's a great villain. I love him a lot. But this one really cements Tom Holland as a really like heartfelt Peter Parker. He's very good.
Yeah.
And the man can clearly act. Like, he's such a good actor. And obviously you get more of him and Zendaya here, which is good.
Yeah.
And Ned. Yeah. So the three of them together work really well. I don't know how much I care about the whole road trip aspect of it with going around to London and kind of traveling. I don't really care.
I think it was just more to put them in a place.
Exactly.
It
London, felt like so exposition, basically.
Yeah.
But as on the whole, I think it's great. And that bit where he's like in Mysterio's like cave thing and he's got to do all the fighting, that bit's class. Like, I'm a big fan of that. I think it's a fun film.
And it's a vital film really for the overall story of Spider-Man. Like, this is the first time where I think it's the first time outside of like Iron Man really where like an actual person's been revealed. Like this is the first proper reveal.
Yes, you're right
of a superhero.
And this took
really,
place
because obviously you'll have people who are
Endgame, didn't it? Because Iron Man was dead. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, this was like the first big reveal of here is a superhero, like a mass superhero outside of like Thor, Captain America, who just
it's such a good reveal. It's so fun.
Fantastic, yeah. And I mean this is the whole build to Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
So I think it's a vital film. I think this is great. I don't know. I don't understand the hatred for this film at all.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I don't really understand why people dislike it so much, but whatever. We seem to be easier enjoyers than most.
100%. 100%.
Number 17 is Doctor Strange, the first one. Now, the visuals of this film alone blew my mind. I watched this at IMAX and it gave me such a migraine. Like, it was crazy. But, like, the film as a whole...
You do not watch the film if you suffer with epilepsy.
Yeah, no.
There's so much going on.
The film as a whole, I think it's a really strong origin. Although it almost feels a bit Iron Man-ish at times with his origin story, I think he's kind of the perfect part to play Doctor Strange. Benedict Cumberbatch is great. And I do care about his character a lot. And then when he gets trained and when he goes to wherever he goes to train, that's so much fun. I think there's some really great scenes in this film. The ending, the last act is Dormammu, isn't it, with the repeat?
Yeah,
a lot of fun. Not the best third act of a film, but a very good film, and I think a really solid start to his adventures.
Yeah, and I think as much as it's not a solid end because he's not just fighting.
Yeah,
I think this is where what Doctor Strange does. Like, Doctor Strange is the brains.
Yes,
he is the guy who's like he'll outthink you. He's not there really to physically outstrength anybody. So I think the fact that like this is the first introduction, and again, much of the climax isn't that exciting. It's like the first time you go, oh, you're smarter than everyone else, rather than you're using your brains rather than brawn, which is interesting. And I think it works really well for the Avengers going forward with Doctor Strange involved, where it is more of like the thought side of things, and obviously when it's with the Avengers, not so bad when you've got the people fighting and he's the one coming up with the plans. Whereas in this one, when it's him being like, I'm going to outthink you, it does get a bit like fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, fantastic origin for Doctor Strange.
Yeah, and I think some really solid comedy. I think that kind of gets never really gets mentioned, but there's some really strong comedic moments in this film. So I think it's super solid. What is it? 16.
16 is Doctor Strange 2, Multiverse of Madness. So yeah, I think it's a toss-up for me as to either way this goes. I think we edge towards Multiverse of Madness, which again I think is another film which was panned. Well, not panned, but it probably wasn't it really? I think this unfortunately
it for no reason.
Well, unfortunately, this was its own fault because coming out, everyone said we're going to have all these cameos, all these people are coming back. I mean, it was like people were talking about this. The new Endgame was getting thrown around everywhere, wasn't it? We're going to get the cameos on the level,
being in it and all
Iron Man and all. Like we had, it was like cameo central. Like the amount of people that was said were going to be in this film unfortunately hurt it. Because the cameos we did get were incredible. Like if you look at what we got from it was cool. As much as it's a shame, and I think going forward, as we'll talk about a bit later, is where one film we watched very recently did it very well. I think this film brought them in and then kind of just shit on them, and it was a bit like, ooh, I could see the annoyance of bringing so many of these amazing characters in and killing them within 5 minutes of meeting.
They brought Mr. Fantastic and killed him. I mean, that was such a silly
instantly
mistake.
As well, wasn't it?
Stupid.
Yeah. So I think at least let them have a fight. Which I mean, again, this was kind of where we had the Captain Britain.
Yes.
The first time. So that all that sort of fight was great.
Yeah.
But the great scenes, great horror.
Yes, so that's kind of why, for me, it's so high. Obviously, Scott Derrickson was supposed to direct first, he's a great horror director, but then he dropped out due to creative differences. And they brought Sam Raimi back, the man who brought us Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3, and Evil Dead. So naturally, that was incredible to already hear, really so that was awesome. And then, to kind of tie it in with What If, which was really weird, I thought was a very cool idea. There's some really creative fight scenes here as well. The musical notes, amazing. But I can see it not being someone's personal taste. I get it, but I don't really see, apart from the whole cameos thing, I don't really know why it got hated so much. I think this is a really fun one, and I think it's one of the strongest in the new phases. I think it's really good. Really, really solid.
I know, 100%. I completely agree. Completely agree with you.
15 on our list is our little introduction to the Avengers film. But this is, we get Age of Ultron, so it's the second one. So Avengers Age of Ultron is our 15th, and it is the weakest Avengers film, I think, but it's certainly not a bad one. I think it's awesome.
No, it's one of those where I think the more I think of one, I'm like, did we make a mistake here? Because it is, you obviously have, probably the biggest, with that fight scene with the whole lifting up the entire city and that, I think it's it's become a huge canon moment.
Well, that was
for the Avengers.
That was the Sokovian right, wasn't it? That was what Civil War was about. They totaled the whole town essentially, so they need to get a handle on it.
It's become a massive part of it, as much as the first Avengers did with the whole, a lot of the heroes currently now were in or around New York when it was all going on. I think this is it's a huge canon moment, and obviously we're introduced to Vision, we're introduced to Quicksilver, we're introduced to Wanda, and obviously Ultron is fantastic as well. So there's a lot. I think this is a very important film.
Yes,
you need this film. But it's.
I think the negatives are pretty visible here. That's my biggest issue. The things they did, things they didn't do great, are very in the center, because unfortunately we just came off the first film, which you'll see much higher up this list. It's fucking phenomenal. To then get this, which is still really good. It has one of my favorite openings. It has a good bit of back and forth banter between Tony and Captain America and stuff like that. But then you get the really weird scenes of, now I'm not a comic book follower, I think I've said this multiple times, but the whole Natasha Romanoff and Hulk thing, I don't get it. I don't understand. And then there's a lot of comedy in this film that undercuts the action and undercuts the serious tones, which I've never been a fan of. But the action scenes themselves, like the Hulkbuster versus Thor, incredible. You get some fantastic scenes. Unfortunately, it is just the weakest of the bunch.
Yeah, no, it is.
One
It
of
is
them
the
had
weakest
to
of the
be,
bunch.
and this is it.
Yeah, I think, as I said, I think it's an important film, just maybe not the best film.
I agree. And I think you can kind of say that about the next few, realistically. These are very good films, but they're just not...
Oh, no. Well, I mean, we're in the top 15 now, isn't we?
Yeah,
You know,
these are very good films.
This is like the best, really, isn't it? You know,
Yes.
leading up to going forward. So, number 14, nearly ruined it. Number 14 is a personal highlight for me.
Yes.
It is Mr. Shang-Chi.
Is it And the Legend of the Ten Rings? Is that the full title?
Yes.
Yes.
I think so, yeah. So yeah, this might be somewhat controversial overall. I think for me,
I think it might be alright though. You know, I think most people kind of rate it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, this is probably the best thing we've had.
Yeah.
Really, like since, especially for an origin, like for the new characters introduced since Endgame, since in this new phase, this is by far the best.
Yeah.
Personally, I think. I think it's a great introduction. I think like the aesthetic, as I've spoken about before, the aesthetic or this film in general, like we have a lot of like the neon-y sort of like undergroundy fight scene things. We have like the wherever, I can't remember exactly where they end up. We end up in a sort of like a martial artsy sort of, you know, place. When they got all the dragons, we have all that sort of stuff going on. Like there's so much going on in this film. Like it's kind of crazy that this is just an origin. Obviously we have bring people back like the Mandarin we mentioned earlier.
Yes, yeah, we do.
Kind of has like a bigger role, I guess.
Yeah,
like they
Trevor.
kind of, he's still he's still like, well, yeah, he is just Trevor now. But yeah, it was nice in a weird way. It was nice for them to kind of give him a bit more,
yeah,
you know, rather than, because I think for so many people to be like, oh, they hated the fact that he was part of it, but not actual villain. I think for them to kind of give him a little bit of a send off was kind of cute. Like,
yeah, I agree.
But yeah, I can't wait for more Shang-Chi. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, and this is another one where I think they do the comedy extremely well. And this was before Awkwafina started to be in every film ever and started.
This is what made it, wasn't it?
Yeah, she was good in this. I like her in this. I think that there's such good humor between Shang-Chi and her, Katie, I think her name is, something like that. I think those two work so well, but then you get the insanely good martial arts scenes that feel like, they don't feel like a Marvel film. It feels like an old kind of martial arts film, which works perfectly.
It's very like Jackie Chan-esque, and it's very like the sort of drunken, I can't remember the exact style it's called, but like the drunken sort of thing where they call it, where it's like, it's clumsy, but it's amazing.
Yeah, so good. I mean? And I think it's a really good villain story here as well. I think this, as you said, it's one of the most solid films of this. And Simu Lee, who plays Shang-Chi, that man's got charisma for days. Like, he is great. I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
Big fan.
Yeah, can't wait to see more going forward.
Yep.
Number 13 down.
So number 13 is Black Panther, which I think, again, is such an important film for this universe, and has one of the best villains of the MCU, like, ever. I think he's insanely good. I think everyone acts so well here. The CGI is not good, though, unfortunately.
Atrocious.
I think that knocks it down a bit. And it does kind of follow the same story of The Lion King, unfortunately. When you look into it, it's very Lion King, which is really weird.
Yeah, it does.
But as a whole, this is a fantastic film, which is just a really good, fun watch. And again, Chadwick Boseman, same situation. He had charisma for days. This man had the ability to carry films. He was great, and I think it's such a good film. It's great.
And again, it's very important. I mean, Wakanda becomes a vital part of the Marvel universe and the Avengers, especially going forward, with all like the technology and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a very important film. And I mean, it's fantastic. It's such, obviously, as we mentioned earlier, such a shame that this is kind of the only film he got to do on his own. And I think realistically, the villain, what is his name, Dan?
Killmonger.
Killmonger, I think realistically he should have been the one to take up the mantle.
100%,
I know, like, you know, but I think that's kind of where we should have gone with it, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, it's Black Panther, isn't it? It's fantastic.
It's also got some great side characters, like the side characters in this world. M'Baku specifically, who leads the like opposite clan. That man, my god,
what a terrifying monster of a man.
Good.
But yeah, like as I said, like a real shame. But while we had him, Black Panther was the goat.
Yeah, I agree.
Number 12 is, finally, he's got a good one. I mean, I think it's a good one. But finally we got a good one. It's Thor Ragnarok. I think this is very, very obviously the best Thor film.
Yeah, 100%, easily. And I think this is a film that it's genuinely loved. And
Yeah.
I'm not on the train with it as much as everyone else. I don't know why. I don't know what it is. I think it was the first time I watched it. I wasn't expecting a full-blown comedy. Plus, I didn't really know who Taika Waititi was at the time. So I had no idea what I was in for. I remember watching it. It was like midday on the first day. And I walked out just kind of confused. I was just like, me and Rich looked at each other. We were just kind of like, what? But on a rewatch, I've watched it now about 2 or 3, 4, maybe 4 times. It's a very fun film, which I think Hulk and Loki steal the show. I think they're brilliant in this. But Thor is very good, and it has one of the best openings to a Marvel film as well. It's very good. It's clearly a really good film. It just took me a while to realize how much humor was going to be in it and how much Taika Waititi was going to put his humor in it, which is a very acquired taste. And if you don't really like that kind of in-your-face humor, it's not so great.
Korg is basically Taika Waititi.
Well, I mean, that's literally him playing himself, essentially.
Yeah.
But it is. It's a very solid film, and it is easily the best Thor film.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of probably what makes it seem even better in a way, is the fact that like this is very obviously like this is I think what people wanted from Thor, and the fact that we got this, and again like with the whole battles with Hulk and all stuff like that. I think the fact that we got this from a Thor, I think it kind of raises it up slightly.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, still a fantastic film.
Yeah, it's a great time. It's a really good time. Number 11 will be Captain America, the First Avenger, which I love this film. I think Captain America has a super solid trilogy. And again, I think Chris Evans is probably my favourite actor in the whole MCU. I think he's just, obviously aside from Robert Downey Jr., I think Chris Evans he just had that level of charisma that was so much fun. He was you just felt like he was like the patriotic man that you wanted to follow, which I think was so good. And this film is no different. Like it's a really solid trilogy. Yeah, it's not the best Captain America, but it is such a great intro with a great villain. I love it. I love this one.
Yeah. I mean, he is Mr. America, isn't he? As much as he's in Captain America, like you really feel that as well. Like I think because he is such a good guy. He's such a clean cut guy. Like you can really feel that. Like he's just good.
Yeah. No, that's the only word. Like he's a good guy.
But it doesn't. But I think for a lot of, I think it's a tricky one for a lot of superheroes, especially for like the main people, similar to people like Superman stuff. Whenever people play Superman, it's really tricky because he's just like he's just good, isn't he? Yeah. When you think of hero, he is the hero. There's not really a lot wrong with him, and I think it's similar to this. But I think he plays it so well. I think he is slightly broken in times, do you know what I mean, where he is a bit like he's a bit too tunnel vision.
Yes.
I think for this film, for introduction to him, obviously we have the whole stuff with Red Skull. I think even the setting being back in the 1940s, it was around the World War and stuff, which is really cool aesthetic as well for it. And I think like it's a great introduction. I think even the fact that they bring him forward in time is a cool way to bring him forward.
Blew my mind as a kid.
For him to be a bit sort of like, what the hell is going on, as you would be if you're like 40, 50, whatever years you are in the future, all of a sudden like everything's changed. It's like, what the hell is going on? So fantastic. I mean, it's Captain America.
And don't forget, we got that iconic shot of him being all tiny, waking up, being absolutely shredded. Like that. I remember that being like massive.
I know. And I mean, God, like bloody hell,
this
like
man
that
is
boy
giant,
worked. Like God damn.
So
it'd be hilarious seeing him as skinny, like as in walking around still ginormous, and everyone's like, hey little man, and he's just there next to him like, right.
Great film though, a really good way to kick into our now top 10. So what's number 10?
Top 10, we are here. So this was I fought for this slightly.
You did, and I'm more
we did want a full Captain America.
I'm more than happy to have it where it is.
So at number 10, it is Spider-Man No Way Home.
That's the one.
Yes. Right, so that is the most recent Spider-Man.
Yes.
With all the Spider-Man. The love letter to Spider-Man, basically, isn't it? This is what this film is. So I think for me this is a top 10 because again, like I think to bring generations, isn't it really? With Spider-Man and bring them all into a film, and not only the Tom Maguire, Garfield and Tom Holland, we've also got like people like Doc Ock coming back, people like Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin coming back, Sandman, like I think Electro. They've brought so many things together for this film. As much as it's not it does have an impact on the overall world of Marvel. I think as a standalone thing, just as I said, it's just them going, if you love Spider-Man, this is for you. And obviously, we have the massive emotional moment where
Aunt May,
he finally loses he loses Aunt May as well.
But then, as you just said, this does tie into the MCU more at the whole of the end, because obviously we get the whole spell of no one knows who Peter Parker is anymore.
So
which
no
is
one knows who he is. Yeah,
crazy. Like, go on.
Sorry, I was going to say it's fascinating to see where they're going to go with this going forward.
Oh,
because now we
saw a glimpse of it in Deadpool and Wolverine with the picture of Iron Man and Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and they've covered him out because no one knows who he is. They've put that thing in front of him because it's a picture of Iron Man and some kid. It's very clever, and I think when they're going to go forward, it's going to be really well done.
Yeah. I'm really interested to see it. I think like this is going to be a really cool thing for Spider-Man in general. I think because Spider-Man's always, Tom Holland's Spider-Man especially is just a kid, really, isn't he? That's the whole thing, is he's just a kid. Yeah. So I think to see him be less of a kid in a way, do you know what I mean? To see him being less sort of like childlike and more like a man, really, where he's like lost and a bit, I'm fascinated to see where they bring him back and how they bring him back, and I'm hoping they kind of do him a bit more gritty and a bit nastier and a bit, I
completely agree. I really love this film. I think it's one of the best to come out in years, and this was such a celebration, and I love it.
Oh, no,
I think that, it does rely on nostalgia quite a bit. I will say that.
Of course.
I had this at number 11, but I'm more than happy to have it at 10 because I do think it belongs here. It does rely on nostalgia quite a bit, but I think that's kind of the beauty of it. Like, it just works.
Doesn't it?
I went to, obviously we watched this first, and then I went to, I think it was the first night it opened, I went full screen, and people just went fucking bananas for this film. And it was such a great, because in UK cinemas we don't do that. That's not a thing we do in the UK. We're not all standing up and clapping and going nuts. It's happened twice. We don't do this thing. But for the scene where Andrew Garfield comes out of that portal, I mean, I've never seen people lose their minds more. It's an incredible feeling, and it's nice to have that celebration of films and characters where people feel this emotion. I love it, and I think this does a very good job while having a relatively solid story. I don't think it's the most solid story going, because they knew what they were doing with this film, obviously. But I think this is the second best multiversal film of the MCU, personally, and I think it's a very good, a very, very solid film. I think it's the best of his trilogy, easily.
Yeah, no, 100%. I could not agree more.
Solid.
With everything you've just said.
Number 9 is going to be Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Volume 3.
Which, again, brought me to tears about 8 times. This is a very emotional film. And it's kind of weird, because it feels really different for the MCU. It feels like they were more focused on telling a solid story. Not that I'm saying they don't tell solid stories, but this felt story-driven first and then action-centric later, which was so good. They don't bombard it with just silly, like, action scenes for no reason. This is a very heartfelt story about the characters we've come to love over the course of these films. And I mean, no one dislikes Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, these are
you can't.
They're probably the best characters in the MCU. So to see them all kind of have their own arcs and then in the end go their own ways, I think is super vital, and it just made me cry.
Yeah, it's a fascinating one, isn't it, with the Guardians, because it's almost like its own universe. In a way, where we've got like throughout the 3 films, they've got like their own characters they kind of bring in. I mean, they have had like the connections with Thor, and they were in some of the end towards the end of the Avenger films. But they almost seem to be just there, like, whenever they're sort of with the Avengers, it's like, oh yeah, you're kind of there. Hi, God, I don't really know who you are, because they do just exist in their own world. I think this was the perfect send-off for me.
Oh, it's stunning.
For the Guardians, I think for them all to kind of separate, for them to have for them to all like go their separate ways, and for this to be like the last time you'll ever see this group of people together. And I think especially them to go with Rocket for the last one.
So good.
So I think he's the one who has the most growth, isn't he? He is just an angry little raccoon, as we finally find out. But he is just that throughout it, and I think for him to sort of like to see how he became thing. And I mean, I spoke about it briefly the other day, but with High Evolutionary, I think he's such a good villain.
Yeah, he is. He's
such
really
a like terrifying, really scary, horrible man. So like when you see Rocket finally get his comeuppance with him, you're like, it's a genuine like feel good moment, isn't it? You are just like, yes, thank God, like he deserves that. As much as he brutalizes him, you're like, yes, you deserve everything you've got. Like, So yeah, fantastic. I mean, I think everyone was prepared for a death.
Yes, yeah.
Which we never got, and I think they very much lead into that. There was at least 3 or 4 times they were like, "He's gone, oh, he's back, he's gone, oh, he's back." So yeah, I think they did it really, really well. I think if this is the last we ever get of the Guardians Galaxy, yeah, I think as a trilogy, it is up there, isn't it?
It's so good, and I think this is the most James Gunn Guardians of the Galaxy. Which, I mean, he had the first F-bomb in the MCU, which was very funny. It's very violent. It's a real violent film.
Very violent,
it's very nasty, and it almost feels like a test for Superman with Adam Warlock. Like, clearly he used it as a bit of a testing ground for how his Superman film's going to be, and if he does it as well as he did it in this, like, I'm there. I'm locked into his DC universe. So I'm very excited going forward, considering how good this one turned out. I always think back to he got fired before this. Like, if they had anyone else, because I think Taika Waititi was up rumored to direct, this would have been garbage. So I consider ourselves very lucky with what we got, which is great.
Yeah, no, 100%. Again, it's almost like a standalone thing, isn't it? Really,
it's great.
But I don't think it's going to have much of an impact on the Marvel universe as a whole. But yeah, as a standalone, just a beautiful end for the Guardians. This is perfect.
Yeah, and obviously a very good soundtrack to go ahead. So yeah, it's a perfect.
Oh well, I mean, that comes with the Guardians, doesn't it? Yeah. So number 8. I mean, we're talking about them, so we may as well mention number 1, Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, this is what everyone lost their minds about, wasn't it?
I'd say this was a major turning point for the MCU. This was such an important milestone. We had. Yeah. What was it? How many of the characters of the Guardians? 4 or 5? There's 4 or 5 of them in total? In this film, it was Rocket, Gamora, Drax, Star-Lord, Groot. Yeah, 5. And we didn't know these characters until this film. Like, we had no... Well, I mean, comic book readers would have known them. But we didn't know these characters in film ever. So it took multiple films for the Avengers to come together and have that group, and it felt great. But this film was one film to identify 5 characters and have them work as a group. And I've never seen it done so perfectly, and I still haven't. It is such an impactful and funny film. Like, that's the thing as well. This is the MCU at its funniest, like, comedic-wise. Well, maybe. But it's a very funny film, naturally funny. Chris Pratt is great here as well. And I think the way they utilize all these characters is perfect. This film is insanely good.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the reason Chris Pratt is where he is now, really, isn't it?
100%.
You know, like, obviously his massive body transformation, and I mean, I think this is the role, isn't it, for Chris Pratt? As much as people are bored of him and sick of him, and I can understand that. Like, I'm completely with you. I think, no, but I think, like, this is the role, isn't it? This is what Chris Pratt is perfect at. I think this is the sort of first time we see him, like. He's funny, but he's a bit more emotional, sort of. Like, he gets a lot more emotional as we go forward. But yeah, to see this sort of team grow together, this is the foundation of the whole sort of franchise as a whole. And yeah, I can't really put it any better than you have, to be honest with you. I think to introduce 5 characters, them all, for you to understand who they all are, where they've all come from, where they're all going, the relationship between them all. It's just great, isn't it?
It is, and this was the start of the MCU's kind of cosmic era, wasn't it? This was the first kind of space aliensy film. So part of it comes across as a bit goofy, but like in the perfect way, where it kind of feels a little bit Star Trek-y type thing. But it just works. It works perfectly.
It's very self-aware, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a super, super solid film that I love, and I've revisited multiple times. It's great.
Yeah.
Number 7 is another Captain America classic, Captain America Civil War, which was the third part of his trilogy, and I think it's a really solid way to end the trilogy. But unfortunately, it does kind of just go into an Avengers film, which is obviously amazing, but it's still called Captain America, even though it's
I know. It's one of those, isn't it, where, like, I think the Captain America trilogy as a whole is great, but it's also really tricky because it's
so many other characters.
It's almost like Captain America in name alone, really. Like, I mean, the second one is basically may as well be called Captain America and Bucky, and then you've got this one, which is it's an Avengers.
And I mean, was it this one that introduced Black Panther? Or
no, this was introduced Spider-Man.
Yeah, was Black Panther Winter Soldier? He was introduced in a Captain America film.
Yeah, I feel like Black Panther might have been Winter Soldier because I think he was involved with all the government side of stuff. Um,
Yes.
I think.
No,
I think. I
I
think.
think it's this one
Is
because
it?
this is all the government side, isn't it? So
Oh,
I think it's
maybe.
this one.
Because I
I'll
thought
put it
this.
here.
I thought this was the Spider-Man one.
This is
This was well.
Spider-Man.
It is
Yeah.
the Spider-Man one. But yeah, I thought this was the one where everyone was just like, "Oh shit,
Yeah,
it's Spider-Man."
it might have been Winter Soldier actually. But either
Yeah, I
way,
feel like, but yeah, I mean, I mean, this is the first time where we ever seen the Avengers clash as well.
yeah,
But this
yeah.
was very
And I mean
much.
they go at each other. Like it's crazy.
It's fantastic, isn't it? Like all the sort of scene, that whole scene.
The last act of this film is fucking perfection. Like it's
Yeah,
so
Team Iron Man versus Team Captain America. It's just insane. Like seeing
And
the
I feel
interactions
like-
with a lot of these characters.
I feel like this was the first time I really felt that Marvel hype. This was like the first film that really made me go, fuck,
Yeah.
I've got to see that first day. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I think I saw this like 3 or 4 times in the cinema. I was one of those that like have to catch all the Marvel films multiple times. But this was just like, I don't know what it was. It just blew my mind. I wasn't expecting such a spectacle. And then when obviously you get like Giant Man, you get Spider-Man, you get Iron Man, all of them are just coming together. And some of the like personal fights you get between characters are so good. And I think it ends on such a good note as well. And I think it's so much fun. And I love Zemo, the villain, the kind of like that's kind of tying them all together. He's good.
Yeah.
But it's one of the best. But I think it structurally wise, it just works as a solid film. Like even if you just wanted to watch it on its own, you could just watch it.
Yeah,
But
but I mean, this has been
in.
building as well, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Like this whole sort of tension between Captain America and Iron Man has been building for a very long time.
Yeah.
They've never really got along, and I think this is kind of what cements their relationship as well. Is the fact that like they keep clashing. They have this. It's almost like it is, as I said, it is like brotherly, isn't it? Where you keep clashing. You have a fight, and then you're like, oh, sorry, and then you kind of just go, oh, I see your point. Yeah, I see your point.
Yeah.
Right, if we get together, we can probably solve these things.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, I think I mean it's Civil War, isn't it? Like it's I think outside of the Avengers and the most recent one, this is probably like the most hype people have been for a film.
Yeah, this feels like where the Marvel hype started. I know there was obviously hype for like Avengers, Age of Ultron, I assume, but this was the one where I was like, oh my god, I feel like I have to see this on release day.
Yeah.
Like you felt the hype, and then obviously they did unfortunately in the marketing reveal Spider-Man in the trailers, which was kind of sad. But still, that moment when you first get Spider-Man introduced to all these characters, it's amazing. It's so good.
Yeah.
I love the Captain America films, and this is just a testament to how good that trilogy is.
Completely agree. So number 6, since you love the Captain America films so much, Dan, we'll go with your favourite, Winter Soldier.
Now, if this was my list, this would be number 1 because this, for me, I can't think of a singular. Well, maybe as a singular like characters film. This is it. This is the peak, in my opinion. It has the best action in a Marvel film for me. It's insane. Apart from the bigger ones, which we'll get to, but I think, as a smaller scale story, because it's an espionage story essentially. It's basically James Bond as a Captain America.
Yeah, no, it is.
And
it is.
I
agree.
is so good. Like Captain America in this film feels like at his best, and I love it. And then obviously you get the introduction to Winter Soldier, who is one of the most badass characters in like comic book film history. He's so good.
Yeah.
But I think the story they tell here is just so good. This was all about Shield coming down and being the enemy, and how they've got their hands in all these wrong places. So good. Like the espionage stuff just works. I just love it so much. And then Captain America and Black Widow together in this film, awesome. I love it.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and it is great. Like I think as Captain America as a whole is great.
Yeah.
And this is the first sort of time where we see. Well, I mean, it's the second time we see the relationship, but it's like the first time within the Marvel universe that we see the relationship. And I think like the sort of reveal, as much as like we all knew it was Bucky, the reveal to Captain America himself that it was Bucky is
wild.
So cool, isn't
it?
Like the fact that your childhood friend. That obviously,
died.
obviously you're 50, 60 years in the future, so you just assumed, oh shit, my mate's dead.
Yeah.
Then the fact that he's alive and a killer and is coming to get you is crazy. And that whole sort of thing, which again, this is the main spark to, as you say, with Civil War. This is the spark for Civil War, isn't it? The reason they're fighting is because Iron Man's going, I don't like this guy, he's a bad guy, and he's going, no, he's my mate, you're alright. Like, so it's this sort of thing where again, the relationship between them is great. All the action scenes. I mean, this is the first we introduced to his arm as well, which is such a simple
Yeah.
thing. It's just a mechanic arm,
But it's
it's
so
so
cool.
effective
Yeah.
and it's so cool. Like, yeah,
I think
obviously you got
this
a big fight in the
was
streets.
the Marvel directorial debut of the Russo brothers as well, who went on to be the biggest Marvel directors and are now coming back to the next
shit,
Avengers.
was it really?
I'm pretty sure this was their first one they did for it, and they fucking knock it out the park. Like, it is
no, they really do,
such a well-directed film. The action scene, like, on that bridge where it's Black Widow, Captain America, and the Winter Soldier, perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Yeah, and I think it's nice. This is quite grounded as well, isn't it? As much as it's superheroes.
Yeah, but
it's
it doesn't
quite
feel
like
it.
it's
This
not,
one doesn't feel superheroes. This feels just like a grounded espionage story with the guy with the big fucking metal arm. But other than that,
that's what I mean. You've got a guy with the shield, a guy with the metal arm. But if you take that out of consideration, then it's the action scenes are a lot more grittier and it's a lot more grounded. This series,
and I think that
film,
kind of this one really cements the trilogy. Captain America for me as the best of the MCU, with Guardians just behind it. Like, I think this is it. Like, it's so strong. It's amazing. So
I do not disagree.
We will enter top 5 territory now, and we've got the newest addition to the list, which is Deadpool and Wolverine. It could be recency bias.
Yes.
Yeah. It could very well be.
Yes, it is.
We could revisit this in a year, and that could move up a lot. But as it stands right now, this is the most fun we've had in a Marvel film in years, and this is the most I've thought about a Marvel film since seeing it in years. I literally, our cinema was doing merch. I bought everything because I was just so locked in, and I think it's just a great time.
I mean, this is huge, isn't it? Like, it's
about to cross $1 billion as well.
If I did say if we take out the film itself and they just look at it for the importance, because obviously, as I said, it's recency bias, so we're going like, we've just watched this, we had a great time, whatever. But for the importance for Marvel as a whole, this is huge.
Not MCU,
like, this is
Marvel in general.
This is huge. Like, this has really brought Marvel back. Like, since I hate the argument, but since Endgame, when everyone's going, no, as good as Endgame, this is the first time since that, and it's been a few years and a lot of films that everyone's gone, right, Marvel is back. Like, this is huge for Marvel. It's the biggest film. It's going to be one of the biggest films of the year. It's just, I think it's brought the excitement back.
I also think it's just crossed the territory of highest grossing R-rated film ever. I think it just beat out Passion of the Christ, which is hilarious.
But I don't know how that was still going so strong. But it's insane. Like, it's breaking records everywhere. It's brought Marvel back. It's got everyone hyped for everything going forward, Marvel. And I think it's going to end up being a massively important film for Marvel as a whole. Yep. So I can't. What more do you say? Isn't it? It's fantastic.
I think we've spoke about the film at this point ad nauseum on our channel, but I think this is the multiversal film that I think is the one for Marvel. It took them this long. It's taken them this long to kind of realize how to do it, but this is it. Like, and the fact that Hugh Jackman came back for this after saying he wouldn't do it again is a testament to how good it is, and that he is fucking phenomenal in this film. Like,
and I think to connect the now Marvel with the previous Marvel and bring it all together, it never felt like odd, never felt like out of place at all.
And that montage at the end genuinely made me emotional. Seeing all those characters that I grew up watching made me sad. And then, not to forget, this has the best opening to a Marvel film ever.
ever. 1,000,000%. Yeah,
it's so good.
Yeah, so let's stop gushing so much over Deadpool. So number 4, which is the one that started it all, probably the most important film for the Marvel universe in general. It's Iron Man.
Bang it.
So
straight
this, I mean, don't get me wrong, fantastic film anyway. So I mean, it really helps the fact that this is one of the best origin films we've got. Like, it's an incredible film, incredible soundtrack, incredible everything, really, isn't it? I think for importance alone, this could not be outside of the top 5.
No, I agree, and I think it's kind of stood the testament of time where, like, visually this film looks better than a lot of the films we have now, which is so weird.
It really does,
but visually this film did something that I'd never seen before. Like, I've never seen visuals like this in a character I had no idea who it was, and it just kind of blew my mind. And they obviously had such a massive track that they knew they were going to follow going forward, but I kind of think it relied on this. If this hadn't done well, I don't think we would have been seeing Deadpool and Wolverine, and we wouldn't have been seeing Avengers. So it's a testament to how good this film is, but it's such a solid start, and to have Robert Downey Jr. come out of his kind of dark phase and do this is just insane. It'll go down in history.
I mean, even if you think of the risk alone, so the risk of not only bringing Downey Jr. back, who's Hollywood didn't want at the time, they're only bringing him back, but doing for Iron Man, which he's if you look at the superheroes in general, he's not somebody that people going. If you started with Captain America, going, oh, Captain America, I know him.
Spider-Man,
or Spider-Man, or someone huge, to start on someone that's never had a film before. People were aware of, but not really known. He's just the metal one. Like, what the hell are you doing? The gamble to do that and for it to pay off so massively, is just incredible. Really,
and I still think that the Ironmonger, the villain, is still so good. Like, still so good. And I think it's got great side characters. I really love Happy Hogan. And obviously it's so ballsy to end this film with him basically telling everyone who he is as well. Like, it's kind of mad that this is the first one. Like, when you look back at it, it's groundbreaking for multiple reasons.
Yeah, and it weirdly, by the end, it's like perfect. Like, as much as this wasn't the intention when they made this film, for that to be the end of the first film, and then to have the end of his arc, for that to kind of come together perfectly, like, it's just a one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's still good. Like, I can still watch this film and have a great time. So.
Incredible, yeah.
Right, top 3 time. This is where it got hard. This got hard, so... This was we discussed this for a bit, but this was the chat.
To be fair, we got here quite easily, didn't we?
We did.
It was to the top 2, to the top 2, and then we argued.
Yes.
So, number 3, Dan.
Number 3 is going to be The Avengers, or if you live in the UK, it's called Avengers Assemble, which is so dumb. But the first
it is, isn't it?
The first Avengers movie, for me, is honestly, this was the peak of Marvel until... the next 2 films. Like, this is it. You can have the best Marvel films going, yes, but this was the culmination of those singular characters coming together, and who knew if this was going to work? Like, this was such a gamble again. This was a few random characters coming together and just doing this adventure, and it's just perfect. The way these actors work together is incredible. The fact that in the beginning they don't like each other, but by the end they're the team. It's just cinematic gold. When I saw this for the first time, it was overwhelming excitement. Do you know what I mean? It was so cool. And the fact that we didn't even have to wait long, realistically, when you look back, because Iron Man was 2008 or 2007, and then this was 2012. Not that long, so they didn't even have they had a while, but not like the longest time in the world, and I think it works tenfold. It's incredible.
It's the reason why there is a Marvel Universe, isn't it? This film. I think if this film had flopped, then we wouldn't be here, because obviously this is the first time where we got an Avengers film. This was our introduction to the Hulk as well.
Yes, Mark Ruffalo's Hulk. It was.
So yeah, I mean, it's as you said, it's cinema history, really, isn't it? This sort of film is. It was massive at the time. I remember seeing this and just being like blown away that, because this was before. Obviously, now we sort of take for granted that it's like all part of a universe. But this is before all the universe thing was a thing. So to see these people who you'd seen in their own sort of separate films and sort of been mulling in the background, where Nick Fury keeps turning up and being like, "Come on, be a team, be a team, be a team," and to see this as a film, and then to have Loki as well, which is a vital part of this film, to have like a big bad that you need more than just Thor, because that was the whole thing, wasn't it? You couldn't just fight with one. For him to come down with all these aliens and all the alien looking things, the battle in New York is just insane, isn't it? Like, some of this fight scenes in this film is just mental. So many like iconic scenes from you.
But it's incredible as well, because they don't just fill this film with action scenes. Like, there's a lot of scenes of just these characters sitting around talking, and it just works. It's so good.
It's the first interaction, isn't it, for so many of these characters as well together.
Yeah, and it works because they've got like Tony Stark's sense of humor. You've got Captain America's sense of just heroism, and it just just works. And they're never going to get on completely, but that was the aspect of this film that worked so perfectly, because it was just these characters that don't know each other that are basically thrown into a situation where they have to work together, and this is it. And like, you look at the blueprints that went forward, Justice League absolutely thrashed it. Like, it just didn't work, whereas this will stand the test of time. The visuals will grow old, obviously, and it'll at some point look really not good.
Yeah, it will, but I don't think it will, though. I think it just holds up pretty solidly, doesn't it?
It's so good. I love it.
No, I think it's a perfect start as well for the Avengers. As I said, it's massively important again, but yeah, for an Avengers film, it's so important, and I think to see all the characters' relationships as well that we see more of going forward, to see the different personalities clashing or getting on, or people sort of already, as you mentioned with things like Civil War, you see this sort of initial clash between Iron Man and Captain America, and you see the sort of sides people start to take, where people are more on Iron Man's side, more on America's side, more on each other's, like, doing that, and obviously you have that shot. Which will always go down in like Marvel cinema history, wasn't it? The shot of them all together with all their weapons ready to go, like, and it's just as the 360 turn around. I mean, that's literally a camera shot now because of Marvel. You know, like you go to the red carpet, they have the 360 thing because of Marvel. So yeah, I mean, it's the Avengers, isn't it? It's
incredible.
One.
It's so good. It just stands the test of time. It's great. What is number 2?
Number 2.
This took a while. We took a while to get here.
Yeah. I've relented and I've given in on this. So my number 2, well, our number 2. My number 1. No, our number 2 is Endgame.
Yes.
So for me, I mean, it's Endgame. You know, like every single superhero film leading up to and after is compared to Endgame.
Yeah.
That's all it'll ever be. Every time that there's a big Marvel Avengers-esque film, it's going to be compared to Endgame.
Yeah.
This has become the new standard for films, really. Even if you take it out the superhero films, obviously this is the standard. But for films in general, for something to be this massive, it changed, didn't it? Like this as much as we sort of mentioned like cinema history with the Avengers, the original one, this is literal cinema history. Like we have not seen a reaction to a film.
So this
like
is what I was about to get into. I think it kind of speaks for itself when you could not watch this film without people fucking screaming. Like you couldn't. The screening I went to, I saw this and Infinity War Infinity War and this back to back. So Infinity War started like 9 o'clock, midnight happened, this came on. And I've never seen people so excited from the beginning. Like nothing happens in the first like hour, I'd say. This film is it's built really weirdly because the first act is kind of slow, not bad obviously, but very slow, purposely slow. And then you get Act 2, which kind of builds into more, and then Act 3, which is just a straight out action scene for an hour, which is perfect. But people in the first act were going nuts for like Captain Marvel turning up. Like that made no sense. And then when you finally get the big moments, specifically Captain America lifting up the hammer, which still gives me goosebumps to this day, that scene alone, people were standing up crying. And as I said earlier, we don't do this in UK cinemas. This is not normal for us. So when even I was part of this, people were standing up. Like I've never experienced anything like that in my life. And I think that kind of speaks for itself. The quality of the film is obviously very good. It's a super solid film that is the culmination of 15 years roughly to this moment of all these characters, and they all get their moment to shine, which is great. But it's more the cultural reaction to this film that really helps it stand the test of time, and it just blows my mind still to think about it.
Yeah, no, it's insane, isn't it? Like the numbers this thing did, the just the cultural impact this thing had. Like,
the fact
I mean,
that it had James Cameron right into them going, "Thanks for beating my film. Yours is amazing." That's insane.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
no, I know, it's crazy, isn't it? And I think like it's unfortunately the thing that's kind of ruined Marvel since, because they did this, everyone's going, this is an Endgame. This and I said I hate the argument, but this was so incredible. Everything that's followed since has just felt really flat.
Yeah, I agree.
Because they've had to rebuild. You know, and it's so difficult. And again, like the argument is stupid because this is the end of an entire, as you said, 15-year saga really that's been going on with all these different characters. But yeah, I mean, it's just something else, isn't it? It really is.
The kind of unfortunate thing out of it is, part of me kind of wishes Marvel stopped at this point and just that was it.
Yeah, I see that.
But the other part of me also kind of just wishes they took a few years off and maybe came back to now and now started
like a hard reset. Yeah,
but it's just like they released this and then I think a year after we had Far From Home. That was never going to work in their favor. Although I know they're a company and they have to make money and it makes sense logistically wise, it doesn't make sense at the point of your films are never going to reach that level ever again, because you released this masterpiece, 3-hour masterpiece, that people are going to say is the best film they've ever seen because of nostalgia, realistically, from that first film. You're never going to reach that ever again. So not that I'm telling fucking Kevin Feige how to work his company, the man knows more than me, but I just feel like they could have left it a few years, and then Spider-Man Far From Home probably would have been more impactful as well, but they just got everything out, and I'm just a bit like...
Yeah, I think this was built from the original Avengers. So this has been built, the first time we've seen Thanos was in the original Avengers. So this has been building in the background for years. Yeah. So I think this was definitely, I think they had the end goal, which is this. And I think once they sort of like started bringing from probably Avengers to here, that was the goal. Yeah. As soon as Avengers came out, did well, they were like, right, this is where we're going to end up. And I think from there, they just started releasing with no end goal. Yeah. And I think now they're sort of finally going, right, okay, let's bring it all back down. They've got a plan now. There's a more structured plan now. Yes. I think whereas coming out of this, and especially when they started dropping series and things like that, I think they were riding the wave, weren't they? Because everyone was on board the Marvel train at this point. Yeah. So they were just going, here's a series, here's a film, here's a series, expecting people to just turn up because we're the guys who did Endgame. Yeah. It's become that, But yeah, I think now they finally sort of like started to slow things down a bit and
I think this
go back to what...
I'm no Marvel hater. Like, both of us have been very, not defensive, but we've both enjoyed everything they've done for a while. Yeah, but I think now that I'm looking at it more as like a retrospective, obviously, as you just said, this film had been leading up since Iron Man, but more appropriately, the Avengers. And in that run, we had a lot of solid films. And I feel like the run up now to Doomsday, we haven't seen that many solid films. We've seen decent films, but I'd say Deadpool and Wolverine is the best of the bunch, and that's incredible. I just hope when we get to Doomsday, we've got enough care and enough thought of these characters, these new ones, that are kind of jumbled and everywhere, that it works. Because I don't want to get to Doomsday and everyone will be like, oh, it's not as good as Endgame. Because I don't want to compare it to Endgame. I want to be able to watch these films and go, that was great. I don't need to compare it to Endgame, but I just hope again, I'm not telling them how to work their jobs, but I just hope they've got the thought process they did when they built up to this one to keep it fresh and feeling as exciting. Because I just don't want that argument to still... It will be, but...
Yeah, no, of course. I think it's a good thing for them, though. I think the fact that they've realised what they can get with Endgame, and then they realise what can happen when they take the 11K out of it, I think it's good for them, really. The fact that they've seen both sides of this, they can kind of go, right, we want to be more structured. And I think the fact they've got more structure, and especially with Deadpool doing so well, I think they're like, okay, let's calm things down, let's get things out, that we get an end goal. I think that's the most important thing. Know where you're going, and then the rest will happen. The rest is easy. So I guess I will let you go for our number one.
So I think number one is obviously obvious. It's the only film that hasn't been mentioned. Infinity War comes in at number one, and I don't know how controversial that is realistically. I think it is a little bit, but I think these are very interchangeable films. And I think the reason I personally fought for this to be number one, I said, I love Endgame. I love that film. But I think the reason I fought for this one to be number one is this just structurally feels like the better film to lead up to what was the celebration. So this is kind of like your main course. This is your dinner. Endgame was the dessert you've been looking at for ages. That was it. And I think that's kind of the best way to look at it. This film structured up what was coming, and the ending of this film will always be in the back of my mind, because that was something that blew my mind. We hadn't seen anything like that before. So to get that was insane. I mean, again, I remember watching this at midnight and just freaking because we didn't know what to do. But this was such, again, a culturally important part of our lives that came out, and it was insane. I mean, it was like people were talking about this film for months, and then we had that year gap until Endgame. So people were thinking about it up until that point, and that only helped Endgame then reach the box office it did, because it left us on such a dark note, which was insane at the time. But I think the character work in this one sets up perfectly for Endgame. I think the characters in general, to have God knows, 15, 20 odd films worth of characters come into this one film that you had to give the limelight to all. You never really feel like anyone gets left out either, which is great. And I think this film, again, as I said, it just sets up the basis for Endgame, but this is the more structured film that works for me, and then you get the celebration at the end. So obviously they work as one big film, which is the ideal way to watch this. But I think Infinity War just edges it out a little bit more, because I felt like there was just a bit more focus on keeping it coherent, and then we got the absolute craziness that was Endgame. So that was my argument, essentially.
No, I completely agree. Look, it doesn't really matter. Either way these two go, it's a toss up, isn't it? Like you can't have one without the other. It's as simple as that. Like they are, as you sort of said, they are basically one big film. Really, it's like a part one and a part two. I can completely agree with everything you said. Like, I mean, this film, I think for them to allow the villain to win was bold, and it worked so well. And I think the reason that everyone lost their mind so much at Endgame, with everybody else coming back out, is because of this film. The fact that Thanos killed all of these characters, and then like they had to rebuild and had to figure out a way of getting them all back in Endgame. Like, as you said, it's you don't have that same, if they'd won in Infinity War, or if it wasn't quite as severe in Infinity War, you don't get that same like hype come Endgame, where you're not going into Endgame thinking, well, Spider-Man's gone, well, he's gone, well, this person, all these characters are gone, how the hell are they going to come back? So you don't have that same impact. And again, it's similar with the Iron Man argument, you know, the fact that that's such a significant thing for Iron Man to do, where he has to sacrifice himself because there is no other option. It's not as if you can just stop him. It's happened. It's done. So yeah, I think I can agree. It's Infinity War, isn't it? It's
This was, again, for the time, this was just something we had never seen. Like, this was insane. This was the most ballsy film you could imagine.
Yeah, and that's me. I think leaving Endgame, it's very much like hyped, and you're just like, oh my god, I can't believe it. Yeah, you're just excited. Whereas even this film, you're like,
you're anxious. Like, it just left with a sense of anxiety.
It sucks the air out of the room, but in a good way. Like, it's that thing of being like, oh shit, because throughout all these films, all the Marvel films, all the Avenger films, the heroes win every single time. So it's always like, you know, you're always kind of going away going, ooh, can't wait to see where they go next, but you never felt like it was really in danger. So for them to finally be like, shit, it's bad. And as you said, with a big year gap, I mean, this was, again, it's cinema history again, isn't it, really? You know, these two films together were massive. So I have a massive year gap. The hype to build so much up until Endgame. Yeah, I mean, it's Infinity War.
And this was the film, I buy all my films on physical media. I'm a big collector, obviously. This was the film I struggled to buy because it was selling out everywhere. I had to go to like 3 different shops to find it. Like, this was such a moment in history that, people love this film. And I
think especially knowing we weren't going to get another film for a year, everyone was just like, I need to consume this.
And this was kind of like where we got a lot of fun little team ups. Like, you've got that bit of like Spider-Man, Iron Man, and Star-Lord and stuff like that. That set up these little relationships. That was great. And I think, as we said, you can't have Endgame without this. Although it works the other way, I think this just edges it out just a little bit, because it sets up more important things that we then get a really good, satisfying result of in Endgame. So they go together, but yes.
Infinity War or Daniel.
I think
no. It's for both of us. I completely agree. As I said, it doesn't really matter. You could have this anyway. But like I said, my argument for Endgame is it's Endgame, and that is the argument. It is, you know, it's kind of one of those where, you know, they're similar to this. You go Infinity War, it's Infinity War.
I think going forward, I'm just looking forward to see if anything makes people go, that was better than Endgame. I just want that. I want to hear that come from the general audience, and I'll be like, wow, they've done it.
Yeah. I know. No, I don't think we'll ever get that.
No,
and I think you can get equivalents. I think you could be like, this is because you can't get better. You can't. You can always have something that can be as good as it, but there's, you know, you can always have arguments going well slightly, but I mean, like, if you're gonna have an end to a big saga, then it's always going to be, that is the perfect end. You might be able to perfectly end this saga, but then it's not, you know, and it's going to be, they're always going to be equivalent, but I don't think you'll ever have anything better than, especially these two. As a two,
I agree. It's like a good 1-2 punch, isn't it? And I just hope going forward, obviously they've brought back the Russo brothers, they've brought back Robert Downey Jr. I just hope they've done that for a good reason and not just to go, remember this? Come watch it again.
Yeah,
that's my.
I think it's more of a case of sorry. That's how I see it. Genuinely, I think it's a sorry. We know we fucked up. is Robert Downey Jr. Please don't hate
Yeah,
us.
just
That's what I think
that's
it is.
fine. Just make your next 2 films the fucking best films you can make, and don't just rely on the fact it's Robert Downey Jr. And I'm 2 thumbs up. I'm
Yeah.
happy. I'm happy.
Yes, so that is every single Marvel film
MCU film ranked. That is our list at the bottom. How do you feel about that list? Do you agree? Do you disagree? I feel like a few people are going to say, well, maybe. I don't think we get many comments here. But,
No, I don't think there's that controversial. I think there'll be a few in there that people go, well, actually, but yeah. No,
yeah, I think the
that
Marvels is probably the most controversial one because it's like middle of the
probably.
list. But yeah,
it's
this is
fine.
our
Screw it
list,
with it.
and this is what we agreed on. So,
This is our list. It's my list, not yours.
but yes, let us know what you think. Let us know where you would
Yeah.
rank certain things. I know a lot of people are ranking it at the moment on TikTok and stuff and putting Deadpool like towards the 20s. I don't know what you're doing there. This is clearly top 5. It's a banger. But yeah,
Fair.
very good.
Yeah, so like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Leave a comment. Just leave anything. Just tell me what your favourite Marvel film is. I don't know. Just tell me I'm a actor or something.
You're gonna remind them of the 100 subs? Or?
I will.
Oh,
I mean, by this time,
will
by
be
the time
end
this
of
goes,
August, yes.
by the time this goes up, yeah, this will be the end of August. So if you haven't, and if there's like a last minute surge, then yes, if you get us to 100, the big 100 subs, then we will make a lovely video for you.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, at this point, if you haven't, it would be you'd have to do it now.
Right,
like
do
right
it as
now.
we're talking.
If you're not subscribed, do it right this second, and then hopefully, if you hit the 100, then yeah. If not, then well, if it is 100 by now, then who knows? The video might be up.
Yes.
I'd be seeing these sexy boys do some dancing.
You very well maybe, but thank you very much for watching. Our socials will be on the outro. Thank you very much. Follow us there, and we will see you next time. Thank you.